All right, so yes, we're making this really tasty skillet dish. One pan, which again I think is helpful for anyone, right? You just want to reduce the amount of cleanup afterwards, so that's really nice. We have this really nice one pan dish. And what we're doing is we're going to start by searing some chicken. Now we're using chicken thighs in this recipe because we want it to be a little bit softer. We want it to cook to the point where it's nice and soft, where it's still nice and moist. And the chicken thighs have more fat and more flavor in it as well, right? And so we're looking for both. So they're a great option. I'm using boneless with this just to make it a little bit easier. The skin you can keep on or off. I'm going to start with it on because, again, it's going to contribute a lot more flavor into the dish, which is what we're looking for. And then if you needed to remove it afterwards, it's super easy to take it off after it's slow cooked. So we're going to start with that and just give it very simple seasoning. So a little bit of salt. Pat it down. You can even do a little bit of pepper if you want. Again, whatever you enjoy, or if you want milder seasoning, dried herbs are really great. Oregano, a little bit of rosemary, but I'm going to keep it just very, very simple because we're going to add a ton of flavor from some other sources. So pan, a little bit of oil, medium high heat, not high. We don't want this super hot. We don't want to burn it. And we're going to start skin side down in the pan. And when you can hear that sizzle, can you hear it?
Yeah.
Put your ear right up to that computer speaker. A little bit of that sizzle, we know that it's good to go. So we're going to add that to our pan here. And we're just going to get a little bit of a sear on both sides. I don't want any dark brown. I don't want anything crispy. Just slight bit of color. Everything is going to soften up after as it braises, so we don't have to worry too much about that. So about a minute per side of that.
Great. So as Daniela mentioned, this is a really good quality protein source, and it's really important during cancer treatment and even after to get enough protein in the day, both for healing our body and also just, again, as Daniela mentioned, preserving muscle mass and preventing loss of our muscle mass. And one of the things is we chose chicken thighs because oftentimes individuals that have really dry mouth or difficulty chewing and swallowing, the chicken breast sometimes can just be too dry, whereas the chicken thigh has a bit of a higher fat content and holds a bit more moisture after it's cooked. And so it's a lot easier to kind of tolerate. And I believe Jeremy will tell you more about how he's cooking it and how to do that, but also cooking it in the sauce is really going to help. And then another thing is it offers some other really great nutrients. So it has B vitamins, which are really good for helping with energy production and our brain and blood health. It also has selenium, which is important for proper immune functioning, and as well as phosphorus, which is good for our bone health. So lots of good nutrients in the chicken there. And then I think we have some alternative things we could cook this dish with if someone is having trouble with chewing and swallowing chicken thigh. I think we were talking about meatballs, Jeremy. Could you tell us a bit more how you would maybe make this recipe with something else? Oh, you're just muted.
Oh, am I better?
There you go. Yeah, you're
Okay.
good now.
So if you did want to use a mince, you can absolutely, use ground chicken or ground beef or even sausage. And you take out the ground meat on the inside, that would add a ton of flavor. And you could make, like little meatballs, or even just, like just putting like little pieces of it, little ground pieces of it in the pan and then slow cook it so it's nice and soft, and that would break apart a lot easier as well. So you can approach it the same way, just change the protein to a ground mince.
Yeah. Great. I was thinking even if someone is maybe vegetarian and doesn't eat meat, they could perhaps do like a vegetarian meatball, the ones that you buy in the stores. Could they also do that with this recipe?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely use. They have some really good Beyond. I'm not sponsored by any of them, but the Beyond the Meat and Veggie Meat products just as well in this for sure. Yeah. Ready to jump on to like the next part, the sauce? I don't want to cut anyone off.
Sure, no, go for it. We can start on the sauce.
Oh, we're gonna go into that gravy, that sauce.
Starting on the sauce.
Yeah, this is gonna slowly cook in. And like Michelle mentioned, the four taste changes for that loss of taste. We want to bump up umami. Yes, I do love using the word umami. It's one of my favorites of the taste. And you can get them from different types of, obviously meat products will have them in it. A lot of animal-based proteins will have that umami in it. But things like mushrooms, fermented products like kimchi or miso, those will have that umami flavor into it. Cheeses, those aged cheeses like the Parmesan cheese, tons of flavor, umami as well. So we're going to lean on a couple of those, one of my favorite umami products. Make this really nice sort of sauce, a gravy that's going to slowly cook in. And what we're using is one of my first, which I use all the time, dried mushrooms. Dried mushrooms have a lot of that glutamate in it, which is present in a lot of food products that have that umami. Adds a ton of flavor. If you want to make a quick, like little sauce or stock for your soups or risotto dishes or like a nice braise, a meat dish, dried mushrooms add a punch, big punch of flavor. You can add shiitake or porcini mushrooms. A lot.
It's frozen.
Am I frozen?
Okay.
Okay.
So we're talking about mushrooms. We're talking about miso. We're talking about umami. Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm good. Still good, right?
I realized it was just for me.
Yeah. All right. So we have some dried mushrooms here. Just a small handful, and we're gonna put it into a little bowl. That's the first thing. And then actually I'm gonna take off the chicken. So you can see here the chicken is a little bit of color on the underside. It's exactly what I'm looking for. A little bit. I'm gonna take it out of the pan for a second. Let's get your two cooked. And again, you don't need too much oil in there because if you're using the skin on chicken thigh, a lot of that fat is going to come out of the chicken thigh. It's going to render out. So you really don't need too much. All right, so the dried mushroom, the other secret ingredient here you may have heard of before. Some may have a reaction to it, positive or negative. It is Marmite. I don't know if it's backwards on your screen, but anyways, Marmite, typically used, I guess in the UK, is like a spread on like bread or toast. But essentially what it is it's a yeast extract. It's using brewer's yeast. And so if you've heard of nutritional yeast before, where it's used in a lot of like vegetarian food, but it's added to a lot of things where it can add a punch of flavor. This really nice savoriness, it's a little bit of umami, it's a little bit of cheesiness to it. The Marmite is essentially the same thing. It's a yeast extract. There are other spices and like dehydrated vegetables added to this. So this has like dehydrated carrots and onions and some spices. So it has, and my mouth is watering just by talking about it because I already know what it tastes like. But it has this really nice savory, really nice umami profile to it. So it is, if you don't like it on toast, I really didn't grow up eating on toast, maybe had it like once or twice, but to make a stock with it, or to, again, add it to a soup, or to add it to a braise, it's gonna really add this really nice punch of flavor. So what I like to do is about a good hefty teaspoon, and you can adjust if needed, into that little bowl with my dried mushrooms. And then I'm going to cover with just some hot water from a kettle. Okay, and I want about 2 cups of liquid. And we're just going to stir to dissolve.
So Jeremy, this might be one of those products people are not sure where to find in the grocery store. Could you tell us a little bit about where in the grocery store someone could find this product?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best, I would say, start by asking the grocer, because it depends. I have seen it sometimes in the jam and peanut butter section, because I guess it's like a spreadable item. The grocery store where I went to go pick it up, it was actually with yeast, like your active yeast to make bread and pizza. That's where it was, because I guess they kept all the yeast products together. Now, keep in mind, this is not active yeast. You cannot bake anything. It's not alive. This wouldn't work in any bread making, but that's typically where they would have it. It's with the other yeast products. If you can't find Marmite, or you just refuse to have it in the house, which is fine. I know some people like that too. What you can do is they have really good like stock bases now. Again, not sponsored by any of these products, but this is one that's pretty good. And they have like veggie, chicken, beef, and it's that similar like paste where again, big umami, huge flavor, and you can again use that to make your own little braise or sauce to slow cook your dish in. Or miso is another one as well. I keep a little miso here, a little backup just in case. Which is again fermented soybean paste, tons of umami flavor, and you can make a really nice sort of base for your sauce or broth in there. So a couple other alternatives. Let this steep like a couple minutes just for the mushrooms, the dried mushrooms, to really give most of its flavor. You can see how dark it is already. That's from the Marmite and the mushrooms. It's giving that a really nice rich flavor. We're gonna get back to this pan real quick. So I took the chicken out. We still have a little bit of that fat. We have a little bit of color on the bottom. That is from the chicken, the searing of the chicken. All those little brown bits are maximum flavor, good flavor. In the culinary world, we call it fond. All you need to know is it's going to give you really, really good flavor. So we want that stuff in there. So let's pick it up, and we're going to add some more flavor. A little bit of onion. I have some garlic in here, and I have just some mushrooms. Again, you can add whatever you like. With the garlic, I'm just gonna do just a rough chop. So I'll smash it out of my knife. This is going to slowly cook. If you prefer it very fine and minced, you can do that as well. You can run it through a microplane, rasp. Put the garlic in there.
I know Daniela had some tips around garlic.
Yeah.
Oh,
She very interestingly shared with me the other day. So
it's one of Jeremy and my favorite tips. And I see that you did chop some up or smash up the garlic ahead of time. So once you chop the onion or smash the garlic, it releases an enzyme. It releases a compound that's heat sensitive. So this compound actually creates a phytonutrient, a plant compound that has health protective benefits. And for it to be fully created, it needs 10 minutes. So once you cut or chop the onion or garlic, wait 10 minutes before you add it to a heat source, so that you can have the fully developed antioxidant known as allicin. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, we love that tip. Okay, so onion, garlic, and it's just sort of slowly cooking in the olive oil and a little bit of that chicken fat that came off the thighs. If you want your sauce more like a gravy, so I know we referred to this as a gravy before, then what you can do is just sprinkle a little bit, like about a tablespoon of flour over top of the chicken and garlic at this point. And what it's doing is it's sort of creating what we call a roux, which is going to be the base to thicken up the sauce slowly to the point of a gravy. I only added a little bit because I don't want it super, super thick or clunky. I just want it to thicken up slightly. If you don't want it thickened and you want it a little bit thinner, then you don't have to add the flour, but we want this to be more of a gravy consistency. So We're going to stir that through. And it's important to cook the flour out at this point, just to cut that sort of raw flour taste in it. And then we're going to go ahead and add some mushrooms. So these are just cremini mushrooms. You can add whatever mushrooms you like. Or if you don't like mushrooms, don't add mushrooms. Make it a non-mushroom dish. No problem.
I think mushrooms are a great kind of like soft vegetable that people can include. And even though a lot of people, I think that they may think, oh, vegetables need to be really bright in color to kind of provide us with some vitamins and minerals. But mushrooms provide some great vitamins and minerals. So for example, they provide us with some vitamin D, and we don't have a ton of foods that always provide vitamin D. There's a few of them, but this is one of the sources. It also has selenium, potassium, and soluble fiber. So even just having a 1/4 cup of white mushrooms can give us our daily needs for vitamin D, and a 2/3 cups of portobello mushrooms can provide the same amount of potassium as a medium banana, which was news to me when I was doing my research. A lot of times we think potassium, we need bananas, but you can actually do portobello mushrooms instead. So one of the other things I'll highlight is, you're just muted, Jeremy. I don't know if you wanted to be muted or not. So one of the other things I was going to mention, I don't know if people noticed, but we're using lots of stronger flavors like garlic. We're using the Marmite and the onions. And so the purpose of this recipe is to try and address if someone's experiencing bland taste. We're really trying to maximize the flavor in this dish. So these are the reasons we're choosing, or Jeremy has also been choosing these types of flavors for our mushroom and chicken skillet.
All right, so garlic, we have our onion, a little bit of flour that we stirred into there to thicken the sauce, and the mushrooms, and we're just going to soften them. You don't really need to add too much color at this point. If you want, you can add a small pinch of salt at this point. What that's going to do is it's going to help to draw a lot of the water that's in the mushrooms to help start that sauce, and to help actually to pick up some of those little brown bits on the bottom of the pan, and actually put quite a bit of water in the mushroom. So steam coming off now, that's pretty much from the water in the mushrooms there. That's our base. Now we're going to go ahead and add that really nice mushroom Marmite stock or broth here. Smaller dried mushrooms that can go right in. Otherwise, you can even chop them up so that they're a little bit finer, soft. At that point, they won't be hard. All right, so we added the liquid, and I'm just going to stir the bottom. Right, and then we're going to add the chicken thighs back to the pan. Like this.
Jeremy, did you say you're using boneless chicken thigh?
Yes, yeah, boneless chicken thighs.
Okay.
Yeah, boneless you can, but it's just something that you obviously want to make sure you remove afterwards, and you're going to have to cook it a little bit longer. So to reduce the cooking time, and it's just a little bit easier, have the bone out. I'm going to throw a little bit of thyme on top too. Again, I just had some thyme. Why not? And add some more flavor. Lid on top, and you can let that simmer on the stovetop for about 40 minutes, just until it's nice and soft, cooked all the way through. This technique, this sort of braising technique, will help the moisture sort of slowly cook everything, keeping it really nice and flavorful, and again, really nice and moist. You can also put this in the oven, and you can finish it in the oven as well. 375, actually 350, I'll go a little lower, 350 for about the same amount of time. Just until that the chicken thigh, you can even use 2 forks, it should shred apart really, really easily. Now, to add a little bit of starch, this was actually a great idea from Michelle, to add some pasta or some noodles to this. So we're adding some egg noodles. Now, I'll swap. We have the finished dish here as well. What you would do is add it obviously near the end of the dish. We do want to make sure that they're nice and soft and cooked. But an hour of the cooking of the pasta would disintegrate the pasta. So we don't want it to be there too long. So right near the end, follow the cooking instructions on the back. You have this after about or dish of cooking. The pasta will help to thicken up that sauce.
And Michelle, you were saying the egg noodles is a little better than some of the other noodles, right?
Yeah. So when Jeremy and I were developing this recipe, we chose the egg noodles because I think they're a little bit easier to chew and swallow, especially if you have dry mouth. The reason is I often hear sometimes pasta can be tricky for individuals that are having really dry mouth. That they can describe that it may feel like it's kind of gumming up in their mouth. So the egg noodles doesn't seem to have that texture as much. So it'll likely be easier to kind of chew and tolerate, especially cooked in all that sauce, for anyone that has that really dry mouth.
It's a great tip. Great tip, and I'm losing my voice.
You have that dry mouth, Daniela.
Here's the water.
There, there's the chicken thighs, really, really nice and tender. With some of that mushroom gravy, a little bit of those egg noodles for toppings, some of those tasty mushrooms. Again, the smell is making my mouth water. That's what a lot of those umami ingredients will do. But there it is. There is our second dish.